So our topic today is recent export-unfriendly policies, implications for Nigeria's economy. Okay, this topic, let's put it out there before we start. This is not to attack any policies of the government, no. This is how we have come up with the topic based on what we are hearing from the people. We don't just come up with topics, we come up with topics that people are talking about. So it is not to attack government policies, it is to discuss it in a way to come up with solutions and way forward. As usual, the convener of this program is none other than Olufemi Boyede. And today is a different one we are doing today, because today we have partnered with a very reputable organization. And we have many speakers today, not just one, even though the lead speaker, as we all know, is Femi Boyede. And we are with Business News. Let's go straight to networking. Before we start the networking, Femi Boyede is going to welcome you all. However, as usual, remember your cell phone, put it on mute. Please put your cell phones on mute. I'm doing the same thing from my end here. Put it on mute and go to the chat and introduce yourself, your names, where you are joining us from, your company, your email address, your phone numbers, any information you feel comfortable sharing, because we are not just talking, we are equally networking. So at this juncture, I welcome Femi Boyede to welcome everybody. Thank you. Please unmute yourself, sir.
Thank you very much, Lady K. And on behalf of the tested, trusted, and now accredited, acclaimed world's best team, I want to welcome everybody to today's webinar. And just like our anchor, moderator, hostess, Lady K has said earlier on, we need to first and foremost put out there that talking trade and investment global is actually not a platform for indicting or challenging any policy, whether it be Nigeria or any of the countries that we are periscoping in any of our webinars. Rather, we are a constructive group that actually conducts research, does Vox Populi, finds out what the tempo of industry, trade, investment, and business environment is as it relates to what the implications are. So we want to encourage everybody, especially when you are contributing from the floor. Please, we do not condone verbal attacks and negative orientations. Please make your contributions as courteous and as constructive as possible. What we seek here is solutions. We've been doing Talking Trade and Investment Global for close to 2.5 years now. And it is a platform that is incorporated by Business Incorporations Canada. And as we grow globally, we will be planting our foot in every country that takes an interest in what we do. So today's topic is it has been posted, like you all responded to, is the recent policies that affect that have a direct relationship with exporting from Nigeria to other parts of the world. And we think it is a timely call. I mean, it is the right time to periscope these policies so that they can be, when the regulatory authorities and the policy formulators hear our voices, we like to see ourselves as the voice of business, exporters, and what have you. And when they get to see this and see our report that we always produce at the end of every webinar and circulate among concerned authorities and agencies, that your time here today would have been properly spent. Again, on behalf of the webinar team that now also includes the team from BusinessDay Media, I welcome you all, and I wish us all very constructive and productive deliberations today. Thank you very much.
Thank you so very much, Mr. Boyede. That is the convener of this program. And today we are looking at having about four, 5 people talking. So before we introduce them, I will introduce them as they are coming along. We are going straight into the program without wasting time. We don't want to waste anybody's time because we know we are still in. Are we still fasting or is over? Elijah? Is it over?
We're still fasting now.
We are still fasting. How many remaining?
About 2 to 10.
Okay. So we really have to hurry up for our brothers and sisters that would need to go and break their fast. In that case, I will be calling again on the lead speaker to start.
From here.
Okay, thank you so much. For the next one, I believe it will be ready. So here we go.
Mr. Olufemi Boyede is the convener and lead of Falcon Trade and Investment Global TATRIG team. He is the managing director and CEO of Koinonia Ventures Limited, Nigeria, and President Koinonia Global Services Incorporated, Canada. He is a certified international trade professional with over 3 decades of experience in the field of international trade and strategy, and Nigeria's go-to authority on international trade and non-oil exports business. He is an expert in global business environment, international marketing, trade research, finance, supply chain management, and a seasoned expert in navigating the complexities of global trade generally. Mr. Boyede boasts an impressive career in government, private sector, and international consulting roles. He is the organizer of the annual Nigerian Non-Oil Exports Conference, Exhibition and Awards (NNECEA) and convener National Policy Dialogue on Non-Oil Exports. Let's welcome Mr. Olufemi Boyede.
You're all welcome once again, and like we took time to explain, we want to periscope some of the recent policies. And so I just do a quick presentation. Some of these slides I will leave for other speakers to look at. Especially when it comes to the legal things there. So here we go. As we all know, Nigeria is a government-led economy. The implication of this immediately is that every policy of government does exert an immediate impact on how every sector of the economy performs. As of today, Nigeria ranks number 131 out of 190 economies on the ease of doing business ranking. This is according to the World Bank in 2022. We are waiting for the 2023 ranking. I believe we should have moved up based on the fantastic work that Dr. Duole and her team are doing at PEBEC. The Naira is gaining value. As of yesterday, you could get it at between 1240 and 1265 at the parallel market, very close to what it is on the official exchange rate also. So we applaud the government on all of this, but we want to ask ourselves, on what grounds, what are the economic indicators? Is it sustainable, and for how long? We actually wish and pray that it gets sustained and that we can provide the empirical backing strong enough to continue to farm up the value of the Naira. Nigeria is still a monoproduct economy. Apart from services, the financial services and all the rest, 81% of Nigeria's export is oil-based. And we all know that the world is fast moving away from crude oil. We believe that policy coherence is not adequate enough, and this has led to the experience of policy somersaults. Even as recently as last week, we see ministries, departments, and agencies overturning some of the circulars and policies that they issued about 48 to 72 hours earlier. I think we should be able to do better. The major policy that prompted the topic of this month's discussion was actually the invocation of the Export Prohibition Act, and we all woke up. By we now, I'm talking about Nigeria's export sector, woke up to read in various newspapers, as you see here, where the Nigeria Customs Service had received the president's endorsement and marching order to implement to the fullest the Export Prohibition Act of 1986. And you will see in the slides that follow some of the products. What was even more concerning was the general blanket classification of this prohibition as saying Nigerian foods can no longer be exported. And for somebody like me, that very night, I wondered what will happen to the Bosun Solarins of this world, what will happen to the Auckland Best, AM Foods, Bimcaf, who have expended their very selves, their resources, their time, their investments on acquiring food processing equipment. And we were celebrating almost 2 years ago at a PDF event in a hotel in Lagos, celebrating Nigeria's women and how versatile they had become on food processing and packaging. So if we say Nigerian foods can no longer be exported without any clear definition of which foods, and then we are invoking an act that was introduced in 1986 with specific reasons why each of those products was actually mentioned list, we felt that there was danger looming. In trade and investment, global had been advocating export-driven. and an economy where the performance of the non-oil export sector, you're talking of our honey beans, you're talking about ginger and what have you. If we certification, then we run the risk of falling into cultural products from Nigeria.
So I was on the Export Prohibition Act, and I was explaining that the current administration of Nigeria Customs Service actually started on a very versatile, positive note of positioning itself as a trade facilitation agent, as against what we used to know as a revenue generation center. So we believe that what we're doing today, we bring more awareness to what the invocation of that act has impacted on Nigeria's export. We also want to talk about the reintroduction of the export licenses and the renewal of the licenses based solely on proven repatriation of export proceeds during the preceding export year. And recently we started hearing about denominating exports in Naira. So I'll talk about this in the next few minutes. To my next slide, please. So the policy implications that I'm talking about, the Export Prohibition Act was issued in 1986 as an addendum to the Nigerian Export Promotion Council Act. Initially, cassava tubers, yam, raw hides and skins, and oil palm were banned for the reason of food security, giving value addition and local processing needed a boost. The needed boost. Raw hides and skins also featured on that list, with the immediate impact being the exportation of tanned leather by such companies as Mamuda Industries, Mario Jose, and Unique Leather, all in Kano, and the emergence of a finished leather products sector by Naraguta Leather and others in Jos. So timber in its raw form was banned in order to stimulate the exportation of furniture components. And we saw emergence of furniture companies like the plywood company in Ose, near Akure in Ondo State. We have quite a handful of them. The reintroduction of the Export Prohibition Act by NCS has been explained to cover all food items as a first step of curbing smuggling and food shortage. The recent amendments of the Export Prohibition Act by the Business Facilitation Act of 2023. So talking about the Export Prohibition Act, when it was in its original form, it provides that anything contained in the customs and excise tariff, etc., or any other enactment, the goods specified in the schedule to this act are prohibited from being exported outside Nigeria. So we also had recently the Minister of Information announcing the reintroduction of export licensing, with a proviso there that for licenses to be renewed, the exporter must show evidence of having repatriated proceeds in the previous export year. And on this, the exporters are asking, the new export licenses, is there an improvement of what NAPC currently operates? We are all aware that NAPC has gone very, very far and very modern in making it easy for exporters to register in the comfort of their homes or offices online. And you get your certificate, download and print in the comfort of your room. Now, we have gone back to the import-export license regime, where we all know what happened in those years, how difficult. It was probably more difficult for a camel to pass, through the needle's eye than to obtain an import license from Nigeria. And that was the reason initially why the word license was removed in the field of export, and all you needed was an export registration certificate. And for our information, and I'm sure the practicing exporters on this platform will attest to it, smart, mischievous, and opportunistic consultants, when you go to them to say that you want to go into export, they make it look so gargantuan that you need an export license, without letting them know that it is so easy to just get an exporter registration certificate. So the question we are asking, when we change it back to license instead of certificate, does it become easier for the exporter or more expensive and tedious? And what change really has been achieved? The next part of that particular pronouncement is that the export license, let's use the new word now, will only be renewed if an exporter shows evidence of having repatriated export proceeds within the first 12 months. That's the validity of the original certificate. If you are in the export industry, you will know very clearly that from product identification to product preparation, product packaging, to negotiating the export contract, securing export financing, and then executing the export contract, it takes definitely more than 12 months. The only people who can show you evidence of repatriation of export proceeds as at this moment under this proposed regime will be the multinational corporations. What happens to the indigenous Nigerian exporter who has to go through the export value cycle to ensure that he carries out his first export? Will it be done within the 12 months that the certificate is valid for? Even the Central Bank Act allows an exporter 180 days, 6 months in the first instance, to bring in the proceeds of his export from the date of shipment, date of bill of lading, that the goods have moved until the money comes in, 180 days. 80 days. There is the window to further extend, to grant the exporter a moratorium in case the importer out there has one challenge or the other in paying. The other one that is of concern is the recent talk. I hope it just ends on the level of talk and doesn't get any further implementation, where we are saying that exports will now be denominated in Naira. And I will give you a live case study. When I was in Canada in December, I struck a very big import-export collaboration with one of Nigeria's biggest distributors, one of the biggest warehouses in the GTA, Davison Foods in Hamilton, Ontario. And the major reason why we never started was that as at that time, they wanted that whatever we shipped from Nigeria will be settled in Naira. If you fill a form NXP, it does not have the provision for you to repatriate proceeds in Naira. And if you look at the very definition of export, it refers to a product or service produced in one country but sold to a buyer abroad. Therefore, goods purchased in Naira do not qualify as export. It is at best tantamounting to local sourcing. And put all of this together, at Talking Trade and Investment Global and our partners BusinessDay, we think that policy process needs to be reviewed, and it needs to be articulate and adequately followed, just like we have due process. This will include, but definitely not limited to, identifying the issue, defining what the issue is, setting an agenda for the formulation of policy, data research and analysis for policy making, the formulation itself, consultation, validation, where you bring the draft. In the ministry, they will call it zero draft. You present it to the stakeholders, they validate, modify before adopting. Then it becomes a collective document before we go on to policy implementation and then monitoring and evaluation. This, we believe, needs to be followed. I have deliberately in this presentation abstained from going deep into the Business Facilitation Act because my colleagues, the lawyers, one of whom I know was 100% involved in the BFA, will be talking to you more about that shortly. And on a final note, I think that it is very, very pertinent that at Talking Trade and Investment Global and media advocacy, we need to clamor for an executive order that prioritizes non-oil export as a solution to Nigeria's dwindling foreign exchange earnings. We have had interventions, and that's the question that we asked earlier on. Is it sustainable? We've had interventions. We've had Central Bank of Nigeria pumping in monies to the Bureau de Change. And I was actually talking to a Bureau de Change operator yesterday. If CBN is giving each of you $10,000 and a small business actually needs to purchase an equipment for $15,000, when you have sold your $10,000 to him, what happens to every other customer that comes along and is looking for foreign exchange? We need to ensure that this is properly done. And just like we said earlier, we need to follow a policy formulation process, consultation, engage players, get a joint ownership of this. In that way, nobody is going to be flouting, nobody is going to be sidestepping. And this, on this, I call on the Nigeria Customs Service probably to step down on the 100% invocation and execution. I think I want to use the word of execution rather than implementation. Execution of a business of an export prohibition list that has been modified in itself, that allows for the Minister of Finance to actually take a more practical look at the goods and commodities from Nigeria that need to be prohibited from being exported. Blanket banning of export of foods from Nigeria is not the answer. I want to thank you for your attention and again apologize. And we've never had it this bad in terms of technology failure. Thank you for listening.
We are going to take questions and comments later. Reserve your questions and comments. We're going to bring in our next speakers. Okay, thank you very much. So our next speaker is Ali Ndah Abu, who is the Commercial Counsellor, Nigeria High Commission, Pretoria, South Africa. He focuses on economic diplomatic relations, has over 12 years of experience. He specializes in international trade negotiations, including WTO agreements and trade-related issues. He provides policy analysis and briefings for top-level management within the Federal Ministry of Industry, Trade and Investment, demonstrating expertise in multilateral trading system obligations and negotiations, particularly in the Doha Development Agenda. So please join me to welcome Ali Ndah Abu, the Commercial Counsellor, Nigeria High Commission, Pretoria, South Africa. Meanwhile, please mute yourself. Do not unmute yourself unless we ask you to. Please, everyone, kindly mute yourself so we can all enjoy his presentation. Thank you so very much. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Lady K. The Iron Lady I said before, but I changed it to First Lady of Talking Trade. And of course, thank you to the convener. Let me just start like I used to say usually that when I join Talking Trade webinar, I do it because I want to improve my knowledge in terms of the issues that are out there. And that's why I like joining the webinar session. So thank you for that opportunity. And I'm also grateful as always. Lady K, I had wanted, when I saw the topic, and I'm happy you started the conversation from the point of that we are not, no one is attacking government or the webinar is not attacking government. Initially, I said, oh, the word unfriendly policy, it got me scared. And I got scared because for me, I think there are no policies that are unfriendly to government. I mean, by government. When policies are issued, they shouldn't be. We don't see it. We as government, we don't see it unfriendly. But again, they usually say that when two elephants fight, not fight now, even when they make love, the grass will still suffer. So on that note, export restriction has been on the, or export prohibition, like I would put it, has been on the front burner in many countries of the world. For example, I'll give you an example. I think the latest one, or not latest, but in last year, August, I think it was China. No, Russia actually. Russia introduced a ban, outright ban on export of wheat and other grains from their country. And the reason why, I mean, that created a lot of anxiety within the international community. And again, recently, I think China also introduced the export ban on what they call the rare earth metals also, and that prompted countries like the EU, the US, Mexico to file a dispute with the WTO to say what China has introduced is outside its obligation as a nation under the WTO terms or covered agreement. And again, like I said, many government officials or many government developing, whether developing, sometimes institute to this restriction or export restriction in form of export taxes, quantitative restrictions, quota, licensing, and of course, outright ban. But like I said from the beginning, that when two elephants, whether they make love or whatever it is, they're definitely the grass will suffer. And that's what I mean by saying when there's an export prohibition or export restriction, obviously in whatever form, there's going to be market distortion, and of course it will affect the distribution of welfare gains around. And again, going forward to countries that have banned and have instituted export ban, for example, within our continent, I know I'm aware that what do you call them? Is it Cameroon, Chad, Gabon, Ghana, Guinea, Mauritania, and which one is Sierra Leone and Zambia? Of course, Nigeria is inclusive. Are those countries that brought about export prohibition or export ban or whatever? For the reason could be government has its reason. For example, the reason could be economical. It could be environmental, or it could be even a social reason. And I'll give you an example before I move forward to my next discussion. This is sometime in 2015, Nigeria did a ban when they introduced that 41 categories of goods and services, 40 was for goods, 1 for services, were banned from forest market. And it took us a lot of battle at the WTO then to say, why do we have to ban? I mean, why not do institute or introduce tariff or whatever, quota restriction, things like that. And again, under the cover agreement of the WTO, there are opportunities for you to defend why you institute an export prohibition under the articles or under the cover agreement. For example, Article 20 that talks about general security. Article 20. I'm speaking from my head, so I'm not putting the article in my head. But there's GATT. Okay, GATT is a general agreement on trade and tariffs. Article 11. 2A and 2B, I think, also talk about bans. Article 18 talks 18.9 talks about what do you call it now? The balance of payment reasoning. So there are a lot of reasons why government institute export ban. And again, I know Femi Boyede was saying something about the recent one that was introduced, food crisis, and I'm sure that was introduced because of food crisis. You find out that everyone is suffering, and the only way government could quickly checkmate this kind of thing is how do we quickly stop food crisis in Nigeria, and I'm sure that's why they introduced that ban, so to say. So, but I think for me, I think this is how do businesses navigate these policies. And again, I'll come to that, but I think the focus of this seminar is to look at what are the implications of this export restriction or export prohibition to Nigeria. And that's why my point of argument or my point of discussion will be on. And I think the first one is Nigeria has been yearning for what do you call it? We need to have foreign exchange earnings. And now when you institute an export ban or export policies, definitely that will affect our earnings from through export, the earnings that we make through exports, and this can also lead to a decline in our the current country's foreign reserves and things like that. Again, when there's institution of export-oriented policies like this, we know that the export policy generally help us to enhance our economic activities, our economic drive towards growth, because it brings us about employment generation, revenue, and of course innovative, fostering innovations or innovative ideas. But when this policy comes in place, it discourages these kind of things, and so there can be growth. Talk of impact, for example, there's also an impact on employment, because export-oriented companies or industries have this employment. It gives a lot of employment status that we have, but when you institute sort of bans, definitely you will have an impact on employment. Come to talk of issue of losing our competitiveness. These policies again can erode the competitiveness of our products and services in the global market, and that can also lead to when this happen, cost of production will become so high, and it will be very difficult for a manufacturer or a industry to bring in the required input from outside with the exchange rate. There's one thing Mr. Boyede usually say. I remember a long time ago, he went to a conference and he said something about let's pray. And when they say let's pray, he said let's close our eyes and say to the meetings to say that may the oil wells of Nigeria dry up. And I think the reason for that prayer for him was how do we encourage the non-oil export for Nigeria economic growth. So now, if you introduce this kind of policies or export prohibitions, definitely our dependency on oil-based economy is also at risk, and which means our issue of diversification, this thing we talk about diversify our economy, will be undermined. And I think that is something that we really need to also look at when we talk about export institution and export ban. And maybe I also add that again, like I said, when I talked about the decline in foreign exchange, there's also a decline in foreign direct investment because they become skeptical about the kind of investment environment they are going to operate in. Maybe by way of, because I don't know what time I have, but by way of saying conclusion, or by way of adding more implications for Nigeria, automatically, when you institute an export prohibition ban or whatever, this automatically impairs our long-term developer aspiration. I remember when they were developing the Vision 2020 agenda, export promotion was one of those agendas, one of those things that were put on table in the drive. And I think I see Madam Uju, she was an active player when they were doing when we were formulating the trade policy for Nigeria. And I think I can't remember who that time insisted on how do we ensure that we have an export-driven economy in our export in our policy. So, Lady K, by way of conclusion, let me just say that yes, where they said that executive orders be executive order be is it enacted or issued on export promotion. And I think what we also need basically to address all these implications that I've just mentioned or outlined is a comprehensive strategy that will focus on export promotion oriented, export promotion led growth, enhance our competitiveness, improve the business environment from the 131 that is being now, and then also to foster our economic diversification agenda as enshrined in our desire to move Nigeria forward. On this note, let me say that yes, government in its wisdom, yes, sometimes comes up with this policy, and they have their reason, and the reason could be, like I said, could be economical, it could be environmental or social reasons, and that I think should be our focus. The question is, how do we, or how do businesses that are export oriented to that, how do they navigate around those policies? Or perhaps it's not easy to do, but change your product line and focus on something else to make Nigeria great again. Thank you very much.
Thank you so very much. We really appreciate hearing from you directly. All these times I've been joining, you have been commenting, but today we have been able to feed from your fountain of knowledge. Thank you so very much. Madam Bosun Solarin, the daughter of the house.
Yes, thank you, Lady K. Good evening, good morning.
Good morning. You have 8 minutes. The moment you see my picture showing with yours, that means you are rounding up. Thank you very much.
I'll do justice to that. Good morning, good evening, and thank you to the convener of Talking Trade, Mr. Femi Boyede. I want to also thank the team, and let me also thank our participants that are always here every time. Let me start from where Mr. Boyede said, how sustainable is the FX regime? At least as a Nigerian, I'm aware that loans have been taken from Afrexim, and it will take the country over 1.3 trillion naira to service that loan. And so I want to think, wanting to do the right thing, which we all know, should even make us focus on those things, rather than wanting to take up loans to sustain the effects. And the only way, the WTO president, who is our own, even said it recently, that Nigeria cannot do without exports. And so if some of our products have been rejected, why were they rejected? Standards and certification. Is it difficult for Nigeria, like other countries do, to help put that place in order so that there won't be rejection? I've often said, even if it has to be loaned for like 2-3 years, give loans out for people to be able to get those certifications because they're so expensive. But you know what I've heard? And I want to sum it up to say, most people don't understand what some other people go through at their backyard. So we sit at the front of our own yard, and then we want to let them know that they don't know how to do what they're doing at their backyard. I'm saying that to say, if people don't understand what it means to be a non-oil exporter, in fact, let me say this very clearly. Nigeria is not doing me a favor to be a non-oil exporter. I am the one doing Nigeria a favor because when I operate in that field, I'm going to help generate the needed effects. Because it is Nigeria that needs the FX to balance their trade activities so that they don't keep going to go and borrow. For the sake of little argument, if Nigerians are 10 million in the diaspora, and each Nigerian buys $50 monthly, that is $500 million in a month from small businesses that just sell food items, because Nigerians still have that taste, and so they want to still enjoy the taste of Nigeria. And so now we're now adding, because some things are happening and we do not know, we think we do not know how to resolve, and we think the only solution is to ban all food. As a woman and as a small business owner, most of us have engaged in this business because the past government have supported us by the then vice president crashing the prices, the cost of NAFDAC registration. And so most of us evolved from there. As a business owner and as a processor, most of us have had to sell our properties. I started with farming. 3 years down the line, I can't go to my farm because I don't want to be kidnapped. Now I'm engaged in food processing. I sold my vehicles, I sold all my shares. My shares of 2 million at 300,000. And I'm working like most of us are in processing. Now, let me also say that because we operate, most women and small businesses operate in the processed food sector. The people who cannot feed in Nigeria, that they are banning things for, because we believe that foods are not sufficient. They cannot buy my product because they are processed. They have been packaged to international standards. And they can't even go and buy in ShopRite where my products are. Even the open market where they buy from, they cannot even afford it. Is it a jerrycan of rice that is 1,600 naira that most of those people can buy? Some of them who work with us, we pay them 25,000, we pay 30,000. Their children will go to school. How much are schools collecting? Transportation. So let me not miss words at all to say that one, as much as most of us supported the fuel deregulation, I feel that it is the floating of the naira of the FX immediately that caused this crisis. And 2 days ago, what did we wake up to see? My light jumping from 66 naira to 225. And I told people, and then they said some people are zero band. Me, I'm band A. If I produce anything or I render any service to those zero band people, they're the ones who will pay for the light because I'm going to charge it. Indomie will charge it, Coca-Cola will charge it, water will charge it. Every other person will charge it. So who is paying at the end of the day? So coming down to say a bit of what I would need to say before you ask me to go. Export, every country must engage in import and export. So if we want to ban most of the things that have come under our export, which is food, for instance, then is Nigeria encouraging importation? That will put more strain on the FX, the little FX. Then let me also talk about denominating the sales in naira. When I signed my export contract, did I sign it in naira or in dollar? And so if my money will now come in and Nigeria says it is not under PAPS or after, that we will now say, okay, after will pay me in naira. But if I sell to Europe and US or Asia, I'm going to be paid in quotes in dollars. And so Nigeria says naira. I want to ask, is NNPC also being paid in naira or will be paid in naira because all of us are doing exports? I beg, if I continue today, we will not live here. So thank you very much. But for the peace of this country and for progress of Nigeria, policy makers, because they don't understand what we are going through, that we hardly can eat. Most people can eat because I don't know anyone now who is working with their hands in private business that are small businesses that can afford what they have been affording before or what they should use to provide themselves good life. So if those who work with government believe that they have money because they are paid salaries, and then we will keep turning out chunks of policies and policies that keeps impoverishing the people, I don't think it is good enough. So until we leave they, because it is becoming a battle of they and us, or we and them, until we leave that place, there won't be progress. there won't be tranquility. Businesses will not try. Thank you very much.
Thank you so very much. As usual, we are not disappointed. And again, we are going to take all questions and comments later. If you have questions and comments for now, you can use the chat. Put your questions and comments there. However, after all our speakers have spoken, there will be room for that. So let's go back to you again, Marvis Oduogu. Kindly unmute yourself. And yes, thank you very much. And I'm not reading out their profiles because we are really behind time. So, yeah, so please check on the chat. You're going to see their profiles. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Lady K. I appreciate the privilege, and it's my delight to be here. I want to thank Boyede. We spoke earlier before I came on, and it came on short notice, but we had to do something because of the passion that we have for this. You know, when Mrs. Bosu was speaking, she was cutting through my heart. And that is someone that feels the pain directly, that can tell you where the shoe pinches most. Thank you once again. I'm going to look at this topic from the angle of laws and legislation, and that is why I've tried the bits I could to make my slide a bit detailed to speak to, so that if the slide is circulated to every one of us, we'll have time to go through it. Reading it, you would readily see what is there. But the question I want to ask is, the question has always been asked, the effect of the Business Facilitation Act on the provision or the act of Export Prohibition Act. What has been the effect? I don't want to bore us with the historical background, what led to the enactment of the Export Prohibition Act, and I won't go into details into all those ones, but I just want to tackle what, in our view, is the effect of the provisions of the Business Facilitation Act on the Export Prohibition Act. So if you look at the Business Facilitation Act, it was made to ensure ease of doing business in Nigeria, and also to amend or to even repeal some sections of certain acts and laws to ensure that we are viewed as clog in the wheel of doing business. And then from that very angle, the Business Facilitation Act, by Section 30 of it, provided for a bit of an amendment to the provisions of Section 1 of the Export Prohibition Act. You know what is interesting about the Export Prohibition Act is that if you read through it, it's not beyond 4 pages. And that's one very interesting fact of the Export Prohibition Act. So Section 30 of the Business Facilitation Act went through the Export Prohibition Act and rightly did something. What did that section do? I'm just going to read it out. It amended the absolute prohibition of the goods or items listed under schedule or under the schedule of the Export Prohibition Act. It amended it from being absolutely prohibited to being prohibited subject to further amendments by the Minister of Finance. Without taking our time, it just says something like, notwithstanding the provisions of other acts, I don't want to mention them, the goods specified in the schedule to this act are prohibited from being exported outside Nigeria. And they now said in subsection 2, the minister may by order vary the goods set out in the schedule to this act, and subsection 3, it just states who the minister, the responsible minister is for, and which is the minister responsible for finance. So once you look at it, you will find out that the Business Prohibition Act, 1, did not repeal the Export Prohibition Act. So there was no express repeal. And you know, in law, why statutes are interpreted, the court would always, there is certain presumption that the court would give to statutes. And one of those presumptions is presumption against an amendment or presumption against repeal of a statute. So if a new statute does not expressly repeal an existing statute, you cannot say, we cannot say for certainty that, oh, the Business Facilitation Act has been repealed, the Export Prohibition Act. So that is where it is. So based on that trajectory now, the question would be, was the government legally right to give that order, make that policy, that enforce the Export Prohibition Act? According to law, their actions were right, because there is no outright repeal of the Export Prohibition Act. What I had expected for me personally was that once the amendment was made to Section 1 of the Export Prohibition Act, Nigerian Export Promotion Council and also other stakeholders would have capitalized on that provision and mount a little pressure on the Minister of Finance to see if there would be amendment on the list of prohibited goods. But what do we find out? We find out that there were certain pressures from some quarters, but it did not yield any fruit. Now, coming down to the policy itself, the government has made that policy. My thought and my opinion is the government was looking one side. The government was looking at one direction when they made that policy. When you write 6 and 9, and you stand on the other tail of 9 at the head, and I stand on the other tail of 6, to me, what is before me is 6. To the other person standing on the other place, it is 9. And so government did not have a holistic view of the situation and the causes of what they tagged food inflation or food crisis or anything before issuing that policy. Now, when you talk of food inflation, what does food inflation mean? Simply the rise in the price of food items. That is what food inflation is. Food inflation does not translate to lack of food or food shortage, because you and I can testify that if you go to market, you will see the food, but the problem is you don't have the money to purchase the food to the quantity that you would want it. Some don't even have the money. Some have, and when they get there, what they budget cannot buy it. So what is exactly the root cause of food inflation? The governor of Central Bank, Olayemi Cardoso, sometime last year, within the time that government declared what they call food emergency, right? State of emergency on food and everything, and dished out some grains and everything. Now, he came out clearly to state that what is even affecting inflation rates in Nigeria has nothing to do with, shortage of food or not. It has something to do with what? The exchange rate, electricity, power grid, insecurity. In fact, I think insecurity is one of the major causes of what we are experiencing today. The northern part of the country is known to produce certain goods that are listed in that prohibition list, export prohibition list, made sequel to the Export Prohibition Act. And food produced in these areas cannot come down, cannot even circulate. Why? Because there, they don't have peace. The Boko Haram, kidnappers, bandits, they keep tackling them. Farmers are in their farm, herdsmen will come, slaughter them, and farmers are afraid. And what does it translate to? It translates to, reduction. And the little food or the food that we see now in the market, the prices must go high. Now, Nigerians run and say, okay, power grid has failed over 42 times or 43 times within a very short period of time. Nigeria can no longer rely on electricity, because even if you rely on it, they have increased the tariff as we speak, and as Mrs. Bosun said. Now, Nigeria now said, let us look for alternatives to electricity. And what is the alternative? Fuel, diesel. What are we saying? Fuel subsidy. Removal of the fuel subsidy with no cushioning effect. And then the ordinary man on the street is left hanging, is left without any solution. Now, if you count it, power grid collapse, fuel subsidy, insecurity, COVID-19 that had effect on the trade disruption around the world, the recent and the ongoing Russia-Ukraine crisis, and all the effects problem, you will find that none is traceable to the yam, the cassava tuber, the maize, and the food items that the government came out and say no more need for export. So if that is the case, what should we do? Actually, if you look at the statistics, you will find out that Nigerians' import is neither high, neither is the export high. Because when you compare it with other countries and see the GDP ratio, you'll find out that Nigeria is far below. Now, what do we do? What we do is that we need the bodies. The Nigeria Export Promotion Council is there. There are associations that are here. Go in, speak with government representatives to see the other side, that truly we are trying to tackle food inflation and this thing, but what are the root causes? The root causes are neither, that people are exporting food. No, it's not a problem. As of 2021, Nigeria produced not less than 50.4 million metric tons of yam, and was accorded the largest yam producer. But whenever those yams are secretly smuggled out by way of exporting quotes, they are tagged Ghana yam and not Nigerian yam. Why? Because it's prohibited. We knew of what happened to the former minister when some Nigerian yams were exported to the US and it was rejected, and how on the floor of the National Assembly, he was reminded that what you just done is illegal and you could be charged and convicted and imprisoned for life. So Nigeria, the government should see that the problem is not banning or even enforcing the Export Prohibition Act. No, that is not the problem. The problem is tackling insecurity. The problem is seeing to it that electricity is brought, made stable. The problem is seeing that fuel subsidy is cushioned such that the ordinary man can have an alternative to the failing electricity. And the problem is proper engagement by the bodies that we have. I think I'm going to leave it at this, and I'm going to speak more where questions come. Thank you so much. I didn't want to waste too much of our time.
Thank you so very much. You have really done so well. Okay. Can you please remove removing the pin and spotlight. Thank you so very much. And thank you to those of you that have joined us on Facebook and YouTube. We are not ignoring you. We had some technical issues, so we didn't forget to. Thank you for joining. At this stage, we are going to go. We have one more speaker who is unfortunately stuck in the aircraft as we are speaking. Delayed flight. Well, it happens all over the world, not only Nigeria. We wish her safe trip. If she's still able to join us, we will bring her in. Otherwise, for now, we are now free to ask our questions. You can use the chat to ask your questions. You can raise up your hand, use the emoji, because we cannot see all of you. You can use the emoji to raise up your hand, and let's roll, and kindly unmute yourself.
Good afternoon,
Good afternoon.
Lady K. I really appreciate you. My name is Osben Momo from Nigeria, working with Federal Ministry of Industry, Trade and Investment. As a matter of fact, when I got to this invite, I saw it as a very important invite that I must attend this program this evening. I'm going to be talking from the industry point of view of the ministry. As you are aware, the ministry is Federal Ministry of Industry, Trade and Investment. And although we'll be talking about trade and issues that relates to export per se, we, from the industrial angle of the ministry, we are also looking at it very, very critically as an issue that we all have to sit down as government and private sectors to review. But from what I understand, I would have been thinking that for us to even initiate any prohibition on any goods or services, it should be such that we actually wanted to develop that particular aspect of that product. Like, for example, let's say agro processing product, agro products that are crude. If we are bounding, if we're prohibiting the crude stage of those items out of the country, it should be such that we have a plan to improve on what is being produced, to make it more exportable, to make it to be more, to attract more value when it gets to the global market. So I would have suggested that for all policymakers that are here, for us to go back to the drawing board and look at those list of items that have been prohibited for export. Because based on what Mommy actually said earlier, if we're prohibiting export of those items, we are likely going to be losing more of forex, which we as a country we are looking for seriously to augment or to ameliorate the challenges that even our manufacturers are facing today. So I also want to ask our facilitators this evening, if we put Nigeria side by side, the rate of our imports and the rate of our exports, what exactly can we say to that? Are we really doing well when it comes to import, export? And a country that is doing more of import than export is definitely likely going to be doing more of borrowing to augment some of its challenges. So I actually wanted us to really look at these critical issues and see how we can sit down together to come up with workable policies that can really help Nigeria as a whole. Thank you very much, man.
Thank you so very much. Please, if you don't mind, can you share your contacts, your names, any contact you feel comfortable sharing on the chat, please? Thank you very much.
I'll do just that. Thank you very much, man.
Thank you. Isemere John, the old soldier.
Thank you very much.
The warrior.
Old soldier, warrior, and all that. And I will not give up. Nigeria is our country. We don't have any other country. And Nigeria cannot be a second-class citizen anywhere in the world where we have both human and natural resources. My first observation is that what is banned? In other countries, after signing agreements, you use banned lines, like what we did under the CITP program. When you now say ban, the first question I will ask, thank God we have our mother principal at the World Trade Office. But if you have your mother as the principal of the school, are we not supposed to be performing well? These are issues that should not be discussed by any Nigerians. Policies, I don't want to go into policy somersault because the OPS members are board members of most government agencies. When they are there, what do they discuss and what do they bring back to us? Another issue again is that I don't want to go back to history. The center is too strong and it's not the center to manage export. In other countries that we have visited, export activities and all that, mostly in the states and the local government. For instance, in 1960, we didn't have problem. We had more than enough, and we were exporting for industries and local consumption. Today, subsistence farming is still 80%. We cannot even feed our families. Commercial farming is 18%. And with all the fertilizer, what we hear in Anchor Borrowers program, there is no food on the table. The last one, we are talking of plantation agriculture, which is only 2% in a country we claim to be giant. Between 1960 and 1963, we didn't have problem. Between 1960, the problem started in 1964 because of the regions. The federal government took everything. That is why we are suffering today. From 1964 to 1986, what did we see? In 1986, IMF came up with all the SAP policies and all that. Where has that one put us? Importation of food. We came up with prohibition, NES, and so on and so forth. We have to go back to the region. When some of us are talking of restructuring, we are not talking of collapsing the 36 states. Restructure. Agri should not be at the federal level. For instance, a state like Edo should be able to provide palm oil. And if yam is under ban, and the people of Benue are not reacting, it shows that the federal is doing what they are not supposed to do. Because if Benue State is getting money from yam, Kaduna is getting from ginger, by today, we will not be where we are. Benue State will develop the entire value chain, like what Ethiopia has done with Ethiopia Airlines. Finally, when we talk of amendments, laws and all that, do they take us along? Because they know, you called me a soldier, and I'm a soldier, I will continue to fight, in the sense that things have to be better. Those who are operating today at the port, with the custom, with the amendment and all that, we are hearing of import duty on cars on daily basis. Is that how other countries are running their economy? And last but not the least, what is the role of central bank in all these matters? Things need to change, because 2 years ago, they started with RT200. I was the only soldier fighting that export is not under CBN. Today, we hear all sorts of things, and we are experts across the globe. When we attend meeting in Institute of Export, UK and all that, they will tell you, a country where you belong to, you have not been able to treat yourself. You are coming here to talk. Please, let us respect ourselves. Let the organized private sector be at the forefront and the MDA be at the front, at the back. It's not a matter of taking position. And at the end of the day, what we hear is trade fair and trade mission and policies. Thank you.
Thank you so very much. I'll quickly go to Bello Adamu. That's the name I see here. Bello Adamu, please unmute yourself. You have the floor.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Loud and clear. Thank you so much.
Okay, as I was saying, my name is Bello Adamu. I'm the founder of Belzenco Global Links Nigeria Limited, and we are one of the major key players of sweet potato flour production. And I was so worried when I since last 2 weeks I saw the topic. I was so worried, and also fully prepared to hide what the ban is all about. Because what really happened is that the last government that passed, they really prepare us as a young oriented exporters, with the thinking and the notion of seeing how we can drive how we can support the economy of the country by exporting our finishing product to this international country. Now I'm coming to say that the foods we have been banned to export to some of this country, it is really, really disturbing, and it is really not encouraging. So I would like to ask a question, which I really want to get the answer. Does that mean that we people like us that are working from the aspect of agro value chain of developing a product, send out to sell finishing product and repatriate the currency, does that mean all what we are targeting or what we are preparing to, like, see how we can hit the market, does that mean all that has to stop? Does that mean it's been banned? We can no longer do anything? Thank you very much.
Thank you so very much. I believe the technical team, you have noted the question. Okay, so let's have Chibudike and Nene. I hope I called your name right. If I didn't, pardon me. Please unmute yourself and you have the floor.
Yes, good evening. My name is Chibudike, and then you are close enough. Right. I'm a lawyer here practicing in Lagos, Nigeria, and the directive by the president for the Nigerian Customs Service to fully comply with the export prohibition. I don't think anyone here thinks that's a good idea, right? To understand why it was brought up in the first place, as far back as 1989, the reason given then was that, you know, the farmers were exporting their products to earn dollars, and that was causing food shortages in Nigeria, and people could not afford it anymore, right? Because I don't think the exportation of products is what causes food shortages, right? You have to deal with problems. The causes of those problems have been identified by Marvis Oduogu during his presentation. So I think if we face those problems first and tackle them effectively, then we wouldn't have food shortages, right? But banning the exportation of items for which we are known as the largest producers in the world, for instance, you have cassava, you have yam, it's just costing the government much needed revenue. I think someone was dedicated that mentioned that if we are able to export these products and earn foreign currency, then the issue of the naira depreciating against the dollar would, be effectively handled, right? So I wish there was a way the conversations we have here can be taken from our mouths to the president here or whoever is working on this team to let them know what we think of their policies and the actual policies we believe will make a difference in Nigeria. Right? Because the compliance with the Export Prohibition Act, it doesn't help the country, it doesn't help our revenue, it won't help with inflation. So I don't think it's a good policy, but that's just my opinion. That's what I wanted to contribute. Thank you.
Thank you so very much. Madam Omolara Akanji, another soldier. Please, you have the floor.
Thank you, Lady K. I want to congratulate all the presenters today. And I think they have spoken to the issue. The lawyer, Martins, I hope I'm right. The lawyer that analyzed all the policies as it were, had done a great job. And that is what is causing crisis in the export sector. Because there is, within the laws, there are areas where, the government itself is start to shoot itself by the leg. And so there are a lot of somersault policy. My advice is that if we have opportunity to speak to them, to the government, both in the Ministry of Finance and Central Bank, they need to have stakeholders, informed of any policy before it is rolled out. Otherwise, you will still have this conflict. Most of the policies that were on the pages of documents during the commodity board period are still there, not repudiated, not cancelled, and they put another one there. So if custom is telling you now that they are not doing trade facilitation, they are right, because the thing that helped them to do revenue drive is still there as a policy. So we need to sit down and reconcile all this policy issue so that we know where we can help the export sector to grow and be more effective and help the economy. That's my submission. I have other things that I put in the chat box. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so very much. I believe we have some questions on the floor, but for now, let's have some answers. So any of the speaker can go ahead. I think Femi Boyede has some. You have to.
Thank you very much. I'm very, very conscious that in Nigeria, our Muslim brothers and sisters will be getting ready to break their fast. That's why I went ahead to put most of what I wanted to say in the chat box, in the hope that Dr. Taiwo, a member of the technical team, will harvest all of this and include them in the flip book that comes out. But it's critical. The answer I want to give is to the question from Mr. Bello Adamu on what happens to the investments that are already on ground. Like Bosun Solarin said, I also mentioned a few women. I mentioned those people because I know them directly. I was, what do they call it now? I was instrumental to opening up the markets in Gambia for a few women-based businesses in Nigeria. And I know that 80% of these people, they actually struggled with borrowings from family and friends because it's even difficult to access funding to start their businesses. And they've gone fantastically high. I mean, they've progressed very highly in positioning themselves for export. To have sweet potato flour, for crying out loud, it's not drying the sweet potato on the roads. It's a processing plant. It must have cost an arm and a leg to the investor. And if we now say, and this is why I actually wanted to make this point, the prohibition not only mentions the tuber, but also its derivatives. It mentions the grains and their derivatives. So sweet potato flour is a derivative of the sweet potato tuber. Gari is a derivative of cassava. Cassava chip, one of the biggest exports to China, is a derivative of cassava. Industrial starch is a derivative of cassava. There are companies out there in Edo State. There's a company that spent almost $1 million to process cassava into cassavina. Cassavina measures her with semovita around the world, or semolina. So if we're talking about invoking and executing, should they shut down? And when we're talking about this thing, I also want to quickly, I will just make this illustration that I will stop for now. There are two major species of beans, the black-eyed beans and the honey beans, ewa oloyi. Nigerians don't consume ewa oloyi. Nigeria's staple consumption is the black-eyed beans. Ewa oloyi will rank top 5 among Nigeria's exports to North America. I'm sure, Lady K, you are aware of this in the African stores in Canada.
Yes.
So what happens to ewa oloyi when we ban the exportation of beans? It gluts the market here and rots in mile 12, Otu and Dawanu. What happens to all of these investments? This is the reason why I believe that not only that the partnership with BusinessDay is welcome, but that now we need to bring in our brothers, our colleagues in the public sector to understand the critical importance of an all-stakeholder engagement, for us to speak truth to one another so that we all come out with an action plan that allows Nigeria to benefit from all fronts. I already put the model of the Asian tigers in the chat box. It's let the wheat grow, let the chaff grow. But government will now be intentional
As of this moment, Nigeria does not have a policy or strategy on export-oriented production. Exporters go into the open market to buy. When we have export-oriented production, when I was DG in Ekiti State, we undertook a tour to Ghana, Hema, where a Nigerian went to open a 40 hectares plantation for pineapple, only pineapple, accredited by the government of Ghana to export processed fresh pineapple from Ghana. That is export-oriented production. Let me stop for now. Thank you.
What
I hope that
yam?
answers Alhaji Bello's question.
What of yam? You were buying it from.
Okay,
Yes,
so
very well,
thank
very
you.
well. And
Thank you so
No, John, you are very correct. Because when I was in Ekiti State, I helped to set up the yam processing center.
Yeah.
It was the capacity builder consultant to us was Olu. Olu, as what do you call, Lady K will know. Olu not only guarantees the exportation of pounded yam flour in the UK and in North America, but has even set up a a packaging operation in Maryland, in the United States of America. Where would they get their what do you call it, raw materials from? These are value-added exports, not primary products exports. Thank you.
Thank you so very much. We have anyone who wants to make comments again?
Lady K, can I just make a quick one before I run for my prayers? So I was just trying to say what Mr. Boyede was saying about developing what did he say? Is it factories? I forgot. I lost my memory. So anyway, so what I'm trying to say is, you see, when you have people like, in fact, when we have organization or talking trade like this around the world, or that could support our exporters, is very important. So in addition to policy, in addition to the suggestion he put forward, and I said to you that there's need for us to have a comprehensive focused strategy for export promotion, right? I think there's one important note is that I think we should begin to develop a policy reform advocacy around every discussion that we make. What do I mean by policy advocacy? Now, stakeholders of this interest will come together and begin to make advocacy to government on the need either to do a policy revisal of whether pronouncement has been made. But I think most importantly, we must our export-oriented industries must, first of all, ensure that they are ready to go out there to compete in the export market. I thank you.
Okay, thank you so very much. So we are rounding up at this stage. Any last comment before we go? Mr. Boyede, please. Femi Boyede, are you there?
Yes, I'm here. I was actually hoping that you just pick 2 or 3 comments from the chat. Don't bother about picking mine. There are so many others. And
yeah.
Can you see this from my? I can't see myself, but I'm just trying to show a book to you. Can you see this?
Yes. Yes, we can see.
We have 5 more minutes.
Policy.
Okay, so this book was, when Nigeria instituted that export ban in 2015, we tried to write a book. I wrote a chapter on how can Nigeria navigate around those policy pronouncements that it has made in line with its obligation at the WTO. Just a way of letting you guys know.
Thank you so very much. We have about 5 more minutes to round up. If we do not read out your comment or question on the chat, please look out for answers on our social media platform later. And if you have not joined the WhatsApp group, please use the opportunity to join. As we are rounding up, we have a tradition. If you can, turn on your camera so we can all take pictures. And if anyone has a last minute thing to say among the speakers of today, just 1 minute. You have anything to say? And before we go, we should all please let me share my screen for you to see for the last time for today. Okay, don't let me say last time for now. Okay, you see my screen? Can you see my screen, please?
Yes, yes.
Okay, what do you see?
Yes, yes, we can see it.
You can see Business Day, right?
Yes, we can see.
Okay, so this program today has been brought to you courtesy of Talking Trade and Investment Platform and Business Day. So it's not us alone. And you are going to see more of Business Day. We are collaborating on many fronts. And please patronize them, just like we are saying, like so many people have said today. Local, buy local. When we do not buy our own products, how are we going to grow as a people? I love Canada. A Canadian product is $1,000. The imported one is $500. But we will still do what? We will still buy Canadian. You know why? We know when we buy Canadian, we are putting money back into the system. We are going to have good roads. We are going to have jobs.
Exactly.
But for us as a people, even toothpick, if we see toothpick that is imported, we prefer that to the one that is made in Nigeria. We need a lot of education on how we can all value our own. So please choose to buy local, patronize local, encourage local, and all these policies. Again, we are not criticizing government policies. We are only speaking the minds of the people. And I'm happy that the government listens very well to us. That is Talking Trade and Investment Global. They are always listening to us, and they always catch what people are saying on the street that we are bringing to everybody. Okay, I request again for the last time, please turn on your cameras so that we can take pictures and wave bye-bye to everybody. Oh yes, thank you, thank you, thank you. As you are turning on your camera, and you can even unmute yourself. You can unmute yourself to say bye-bye.
Thank you very much. Thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you for this opportunity.
Bye. Thank you so
Okay,
much.
as we are thanking everybody,
Today. Bye.
you won't believe that